Good morning, boys and girls. My name is Miss Latondra, and I am your host for today. This is your teacher, Mrs. Allison. I hope you all are excited to hear what we will be learning about during our next few lessons. So let's get started.
That's right. Today's lesson is titled Life Cycles of Insects. I can't wait to find out what you already know about this and what you want to learn. Let's look at our slide to see what we will be able to do after the next two lessons. You will be able to describe an insect's life cycles and the processes of complete and incomplete metamorphosis. You will also be able to describe how some insects look like miniature versions of adults when they are born from eggs. You will be able to explain why some insects molt. And finally, you will be able to describe how some insects go through 4 distinct stages of development, including egg, larva, pupa, and adult. Here is the title of our lesson today, Life Cycles of Insects. Let's review some important facts now that we've already learned about insects during our first 2 lessons. We have learned that insects are the largest group of animals on Earth. We've learned that oceans are the only habitat where insects do not live. We've also learned that most insects are solitary, for example, flies, but some are social, like ants. We learned in Lesson 2 that insects have 3 body parts, a head, a thorax, and an abdomen. And we also learned in Lesson 2 that only adult insects have wings, and some insects don't have wings at all. Let's look at our KWL chart. Remember, our K is for what we know, our W is for what we wonder, and our L is for what we learn. Miss Latondra, do you know anything about the life cycle of insects?
Actually, I do. I know that they start out as an egg.
Did you know that? Awesome, they certainly do. Insects start out as an egg. Do you think all insects start out as an egg? We'll find out. Is there anything that you wonder, Miss Latondra, about the life cycle of insects?
Well, I've always wondered what happens after an insect hatches from its egg.
That's a great question. So Miss Latondra wants to know, after the insect hatches from its egg, what happens next? Before we do our read aloud, we are going to learn some new words. The first word that we are going to learn is metamorphosis. That's a big word. Can you say that with me 3 times? Ready? Metamorphoses, metamorphoses, metamorphoses. Awesome. Now remember, it's a big word, but do you think you could figure out how many syllables are in the word metamorphoses? Let's try our trick again with our hand under our chin. Ready? We're going to say it slowly. Metamorphosis. How many was that? 5. If you said 5, then you are exactly right. There are 5 syllables in the word metamorphosis. Let's go to our slide and see what the word metamorphosis means. Metamorphosis is the process of change taking place in 2 or more distinct stages in the life cycle of an insect. Here you see a complete metamorphosis. That would include an egg, the larva or caterpillar in a butterfly's case, the pupa, and the adult. Good job. Now, let's talk about a different type of metamorphosis. This is an incomplete metamorphosis. The incomplete metamorphosis only has 3 stages. That's the egg, the nymph, and the adult. Miss LaTondra is going to help us now with an activity. We want you to join in with us and see if you can answer the questions at home as Miss LaTondra answers them here. Miss LaTondra is going to have a response card. On one side, it says complete metamorphosis. On the other side, it says incomplete metamorphosis. Now let's review quickly the difference between the two types of metamorphosis. A complete metamorphosis has 4 stages. That's the egg, the larva, the pupa, and the adult. The incomplete metamorphosis has 3 stages: the egg, nymph, and adult. So I want you to try and see if you get the same answers that Miss LaTondra does. Are you ready? All right, Miss LaTondra, you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. A fly goes through the stages of egg, larva, pupa, and adult. What type of metamorphosis is that?
That is a complete metamorphosis.
Do you agree? If you agree with Miss LaTondra, then you are correct. That is a complete metamorphosis. All right, what about a grasshopper that goes through the stages of egg, nymph, and adult?
A grasshopper, I think that's an incomplete metamorphosis.
What do you think? That's correct. It was only 3 stages, so that is an incomplete metamorphosis. All right, here's your next question. A beetle that goes through the stages of egg, larva, pupa, and adult.
That is a complete metamorphosis.
Is she right? Good job, yes. All 4 stages means it's a complete metamorphosis. All right, and the last one, a cricket. A cricket goes through the stages of egg, nymph, and adult. What would that be, LaTondra?
That would be incomplete.
Correct. Did you get all of those correct? All right, you might have heard the word nymph. As we were discussing an incomplete metamorphosis, the word nymph came up several times. I want you to say that word with me 3 times. Are you ready? Nymph, nymph, nymph. How many syllables in the word nymph? Only 1. Good job. All right, let's go back to our slides and see what the word nymph, what it looks like and also what it means. Here is a picture of a nymph. There is the word nymph. Does it surprise you the way it's spelled? And here's our definition. A nymph is the immature stage of an insect that does not undergo a complete metamorphosis between egg and adult. The nymph resembles the adult insect. So on the next slide, you're going to see a picture of a nymph and an adult. Let's compare these to see what is similar and what is different. Boys and girls at home, look at these pictures. What do you see that is similar between the nymph and the adult praying mantis? What's that? You see that they both have eyes. Good job. What else do you see that is similar? I think I heard legs. If you said legs, you were right. They both have legs. Is there anything else that you see that is similar between these 2 pictures? Antenna. Awesome. We learned about antenna in our last lesson, didn't we? Both the nymph and the adult have antenna. Now let's look at some things that are different about these 2 pictures. Is there anything that jumps out at you? Color. You're right. Yep. Color. They are a little different in color. Anything else that you notice? Now you have to look really closely to see something else that is a little different. I heard someone say it. What was that? Yep. The adult praying mantis has wings. Look over at the nymph. The nymph does not have any wings yet. We'll discuss this more in our read aloud. Let's see what our purpose for reading today is. This is what you are going to be listening to as I am reading. I want you to see if you can hear that not all insects experience the same stages of development. I also want you to be listening and be able to identify two distinctly different ways insects develop. And I also want you to listen for the stages of each kind of change. All right, let's get started with our read aloud. Here's our narrator for today. Do you know what kind of insect this is? We've already mentioned this insect a few times. That's right, it's a praying mantis. Let's see what he has to say. Hi, boys and girls. It's time to meet one of the most fascinating insects on the planet. That's me. I'm a praying mantis, named for the way I hold my two front legs together, as though I'm praying. I might look like I am praying, but my incredibly fast front legs are designed to grab my food in the blink of an eye. I'm here to talk to you about the life stages of insects, how insects develop from birth to adult. Many insects undergo a complete change in shape and appearance. I'm sure that you are already familiar with how a caterpillar changes into a butterfly. The name of the process in which a caterpillar changes or morphs into a butterfly is called metamorphosis. There's our vocabulary word, metamorphosis. Insects like the butterfly pass through 4 stages in their life cycles: egg, larva, pupa, and adult. Each stage looks completely different from the next. The young never resemble or look like their parents and almost always eat something entirely different. The female insect lays her eggs on a host plant. When the eggs hatch, the larvae that emerge look like worms. Different names are given to different insects in this worm-like stage. And for the butterfly, the larva state is called a caterpillar. I hope you were listening because I just read about a host or a host plant. We talked about that in lesson 1. Remember, it's an animal or plant on which or in which another organism lives. If you remember that, give yourself a pat on the back. I am so proud of you. Did you hear some new words? I heard the word larva and larvae. Larvae means more than one. It is what the insect is called when it hatches from the egg. The word pupa may also be a new word for you. Let's continue reading to find out more about those words. Fly larvae are called maggots. This is a fly larva. This is a maggot. Beetle larvae are called, beta larvae are called grubs. Here is a picture of a grub. And the larvae of butterflies and moths are called caterpillars. You will see at the bottom that is a picture of a caterpillar. Larvae feed and grow as quickly as they can. They also molt or shed their hard exoskeletons. They do this many times as they grow because the exoskeletons don't grow with them. In this way, insects' larvae grow larger each time they molt until they are ready to change into adult insects. Once the larvae have eaten all that they can eat, they take a break. Sometimes people call this next stage a resting stage, but the larvae are hardly resting. A larva often spins a cocoon. Here on the screen, you'll see a picture of a cocoon. This cocoon is made to protect itself during the pupa stage, when it will remain quite still for several weeks. Inside the shell-like covering, the pupa transforms or changes. It changes into something that looks altogether different than before. Some insects have a soft cocoon for the pupa stage, and some, like the butterfly, have a harder case that is called a chrysalis. And there you will see a picture of a cocoon and a chrysalis. Let's pause here and discuss the difference between a cocoon and a chrysalis. Both a cocoon and a chrysalis are a protective case for the pupa, but a cocoon is soft and a chrysalis is hard. Can you see the difference? If you have ever seen a butterfly emerge from its chrysalis, you know how extraordinary it is to watch the first flutter of its fully developed butterfly wings. Its wings were completely invisible before it disappeared into its seemingly magic chrysalis. It looks nothing like it did at any of its earlier stages. Scientists call this progression. Progression means through 4 separate stages, which is called a complete metamorphosis. I can't argue with that. Can you? The change is indeed complete. Butterflies, moths, beetles, and flies all undergo a complete metamorphosis. We're going to stop our read aloud here. We have learned a lot of information about complete metamorphosis and incomplete metamorphosis. During the second half of our read aloud, we will dig even deeper into the incomplete metamorphosis. Let's review what we have learned today, starting with our vocabulary. We learned that metamorphosis means the process of change taking place in 2 or more distinct stages in the life of an insect. We also heard the word larva. Larva is the immature stage of an insect's complete metamorphosis between egg and pupa. Insect larvae do not resemble the adult insect. Larvae means more than one larva. Molt means to shed old feathers, hair, skin, or shells, making way for new growth. The pupa is the inactive, immature stage of an insect between larva and adult. And as you saw, that could be the cocoon or the chrysalis. And the last word that we discussed was progression. It is a connected series of events. And for the life cycle of insects, this is the 4 separate stages of complete metamorphosis. All right, so now let's go back to our KWL chart and talk about what we have learned today. We learned that not all insects experience the same stages of development. So we are going to add that to our L column of our KWL chart for what we have learned. We also learned something else. Do you remember what that was that we talked about today, Ms. LaTondra?
Well, during our activity, we talked about complete metamorphosis and incomplete metamorphosis.
We did. We talked a lot about complete metamorphoses and incomplete metamorphoses. Can you at home remember the difference between the two? Complete metamorphoses means that there are 4 stages. Those 4 stages are egg, larva, which we know have different names depending on the different types of insects, pupa, and adult. And we learned that incomplete metamorphosis has 3 stages. Those are egg, nymph, and adult. So under our L, we will add complete metamorphoses and incomplete metamorphoses.
All right, boys and girls, thank you for joining us today. All rights and credits from this lesson belong to Core Knowledge, Language Arts. We would like to thank them for publicly sharing these materials with us.
Thank you so much for being with us today. I hope that you use what you learned today and go tell someone at home all these interesting facts about insects. And be sure to come back because we are going to continue our lesson on the life cycles of insects. Bye-bye.